Welcome to Pick Up and Deliver, the podcast where I pick up my audio recorder as I head out for a walk and deliver an episode to you while I stroll around. I'm Brendan Riley. Well, good afternoon, listener, or good morning, listeners. It is a gloomy day here in suburban Chicago, and I'm coming at you from my walk. It's kind of cloudy. I suspect it's going to rain later today, but hopefully it won't rain while I'm still out walking. We'll see what happens. Well, it's July 1st, and you know what that means. It's time for Top of the Stack. Top of the Stack is a episode segment in which I talk about my gameplays from the previous month. I talk about games I've played, how I did on my goals for the month, etc., etc. So let's jump into it and see how we did. So in June of 2022, I always like to remind you, the name Top of the Stack was swiped with great love from the podcast of Nonsensical Gamers. So if that game or if that podcast is not something you ever listen to, I don't even know if those are available anymore. But if you can find them, go listen. They were a fun bunch of people. So anyway, let's just jump right into it. So how did I do this month? This month I played 58 plays of 41 games. My year total so far is 467 plays of 187 games. So I'm a bit shy of that. If I was aiming for 1,000 plays this year, I'm a bit shy of getting there because I'm at 467. That's not halfway, and the end of June is, of course, halfway through the year. That said, June is the first of 2 months of summer, but you would think that my play count would be up. 58 plays is pretty average for the number of plays in a given month this year. So I don't make of that what you will. My shelf of opportunity, I started the year with 61 games on it, and I started June with 61 games on it. I have however, reduced it to 60 by the end of this month. I played several new games, but I also added some games to the collection, so that kind of buoyed the shelf of opportunity up. Probably I really need to stop acquiring games if I want to knock those numbers down, but whatever. My collection size, which I was hoping to reduce this year, has not reduced. In fact, it's gone up 11 games since last month. For those of you who paid attention to the Origins recap, a significant number of games came from my visit to Origins, as well as I did put into the collection the 18-card escape room games that I got for my daughter. There's 4 of those, so that kind of amplifies the size of the collection without substantially increasing the games I play. But so in terms of raw numbers, that's what that is. My most played game this month was Dice Miner, which I have talked about, on the podcast, so you can go listen to that. It was, I think, this week, actually, that you heard that, or last week. And my most played game online was Agricola, asynchronously. So my top of the stack. This month I had, as always, I picked out 4 games that I wanted to try to play, and I consider it a successful month if I managed to play 3 of them. The 4 games that I picked out for this month were The Magnificent, Tichu, Quirkle, and Paradox. Now both Tichu and Paradox are games that have been on my list before, and maybe even Quirkle too, but I think definitely Paradox and Tichu. Tichu remains the great white whale, unplayed, unloved. Paradox, however, I did get a chance to play. The 3 games, I did play The Magnificent, I played Quirkle, and I played Paradox. Paradox, interestingly, when I went to play it, I discovered I had played it before. I think I knew that. I may have mentioned it before, but I keep forgetting because I played it in 2016 one time. And it wasn't my copy. I played another friend's copy. And so playing my copy of Paradox, I did put it on my shelf of opportunity because I acquired it. And so I figure when I acquire a game, I need to play it once after I acquire it to get off of my shelf. But I consider this a successful month. That's 3 games played, which brings me a total of 14 played out of the 18 possible. So if I want to get back to full success, I need to have 4 months where I play all 4 games instead of 3. So seems unlikely, but there we are. All right, on to new games. As you know, my favorite thing to do is play new games. So I did have an opportunity to play several new games this month for the first time. In fact, 16 games I tried out. So here they are. Several of these I've talked about on the podcast so far. Several of them are still coming in shooting from the hip episodes in the next couple of weeks. So I'm a little bit behind because of my break there, but I will catch up on these soon. But here are the games I played this month for the first time. The Sinking of the Titanic, Globetrotting, Final Girl, Dice Miner, Trek 12 Himalaya, Acropolis, Old Tree, Scapegoat, Clax, Bomb Squad, Mortem Medieval Detective, Succulent, Riverside, 10 Penny Parks, The Magnificent, Memoir 44. A really healthy, nice spread of games, lots of different interesting games to talk about. Some new, some old, all interesting. So if I haven't talked about those yet, there are roughly half of those I haven't talked about yet. That will be coming in a future episode, so just stay tuned. So those are the new games I played this month. I did get to try a couple new expansions. The new Cartographers map packs showed up. If you haven't played Cartographers, it is a flip and write game in which you're drawing a map. And the game comes with a map sheet that has a easy side and a more complex side. And then they sell these replacement map packs that have different maps on them. They originally sold the 3, and I've tried those 3, and now they sold 3 more. And so I ordered those as well. We have tried 2 of the 3 new ones, and we tried Frozen Expanse and Hornhelm, both of which were pretty interesting. Frozen Expanse has this like big frozen lake in the middle, and you can get points for surrounding the lake. And then Hornhelm actually has 2 different, you use 2 sheets when you play. You use the front of one sheet and the back of another. And of course, the next time you can play, you can use the back of the one sheet and the front of the other. And it represents sort of visiting a village and doing some stuff there. So that's pretty interesting. Those are the 2 expansions I tried this month, which means I've tried 10 expansions so far this year. I did have a couple games that came out of the dust to play. A couple of these really long gaps. New York Zoo, it was 1 year and 5 months since I had played that previously. It's a nice little tile layer. Relatively easy to get to the table, fun to play, amusing to play. That's New York Zoo. Next up we have Gin Rummy. My daughter and I played this. She had a deck of cards and she wanted me to show her a classic card game. And I'm like, well, we could play Gin. So we played a couple of hands. I think we played 3 hands of Gin, and she won 2 of them and I won 1. Gin Rummy is, of course, the classic card game in which you are collecting runs and sets, or runs and meld. There are different kinds of melds, runs and sets. And then you, when your hand is full of runs and sets, then you lay it down and say Gin, and you get points based on the cards that are left in your opponent's hand that aren't parts of runs and sets. So it's kind of a race. Good game, lots of fun. It's a classic for a reason. It turns out, 2 years, 11 months, and 22 days since I'd played Gin previously. So it was fun to get that out with her. And then, as I mentioned earlier, when I played Paradox this month, I wasn't in fact playing a new game. Instead, I was getting a game out of the dust. And according to my records, it was 5 years, 10 months, and 17 days since I had last played Paradox. So, very dusty game, but it was fun to get it out. That makes 18 games dusted off so far this year, or roughly 3 a month. Okay, continuing on. I made good progress on my 52 game challenge this week, or this month. As I have previously in the first half of the year, just been playing games and then seeing whether any of them apply to the list of 52 games in the 52 game challenge. And for each prompt that I fulfill, I fill it in. After this month, I have 10 left to go. And so I'm going to be more deliberate about playing games that will fulfill these requirements rather than fulfilling the requirements by randomly playing games. But here are the ones I fulfilled this month. Coming in was 36, so I got 6 games fulfilled this month. Starting off, play your favorite prompt from 2020. My favorite prompt from 2020 was play a game with a title that is a whole sentence. So I picked Just One. Now, interestingly, I don't know, you might argue Just One isn't a sentence, but I would say depending on how you're writing, you could totally do that. Like, how many books did you read this summer? Just one. That's a sentence. Sure, I'm claiming it. Then we have play a game with unusual packaging, either the shape of the box or the type of packaging, etc. I picked Globetrotting, which is the new game from R2I Studios. It's available on Kickstarter right now as part of a crowdfunding campaign This game comes in a suitcase. It's a cardboard suitcase, but it's a box that looks like a suitcase, and the whole idea is you're taking trips, so that's the idea there. Next up, play a game where you beat the bad guys or triumph over evil. I chose this Final Girl, which I talked about already on the podcast. It's a game where you're trying to beat the bad guys. When I played, we didn't actually do it, but it is part of the idea of the game that you're beating the bad guys. Next up, play a game you have already played as a teen. Once again, Gin Rummy is a game I've been playing my whole life. I've known it since I was in middle school, so I definitely played it as a teen. Gin Rummy. Play a game where there is something wrong. I haven't talked about this one yet, but Mortem, Medieval Detective. In this game, you are working for a sort of secret agent, a secret group, a secret society that has you investigating mysterious crimes. And so, of course, because you're investigating, something must be wrong. And that's true. Something is wrong. Next up, we got play a game with a surprise ending. I chose for this one Scapegoat, which is another game I have not yet talked about on the podcast, but let me assure you that it has a surprise ending. So my expand your shelf log, which keeps track of my expansions that I've acquired. I do have a few more expansions to add. I already mentioned the 2 cartographers maps. The third one, which I haven't played yet, is called Kethra's Step. That's the third of the 3 maps that came in the map pack. Then next up we have the Magnificent, the Snow expansion, SNO. This is an expansion to the things already available in the Magnificent. I picked this up because when I got the Magnificent, it was on significant discount. And I suspect it's not a game that's going to stay in print, or it's just going to become harder to find. So I figured I might as well get the expansion while I was at it. So I have it. I mentioned that I got Roll for the Galaxy Rivalry at Origins. I was excited to find this for a reasonable price and got it. And then finally, in Indianapolis over the weekend, I picked up the Norwegians expansion for A Feast for Odin. So I'm excited to bring that to the table at some point soon. Finally, my collection size update. It began at 542 at the beginning of the month. With points from my purchases, I got Glass Road, Bureau of Investigations, and the Magnificent. Then at Origins, I picked up Scapegoat, Dice Miner, Mortem, Medieval Detective, the Kringle Caper, the Independence Incident, Pumpkin Problem, and the Cupid Crisis. And finally, I also ordered at Origins with free shipping because it was during Origins, Riverside, which came, and I did not mention that as a game I played, but I did also play Riverside. Was that not in my list? That was not in it was in my list of games I played, Riverside. So that's another one I acquired, which brings my collection size to 553 games.
Future Brendan here. As I was editing the episode, I realized I forgot to tell you which games will be on the top of my stack for July of 2022. Oops. So here they are. Glass Road, the Uwe Rosenberg game, which was a Grail game for a long time and I picked up last month. The Bureau of Investigations, the next game in the Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective series, but not actually featuring Sherlock Holmes. Lords of Zidit, a regular returning guest on the top of the stack. We'll see if I can get it played this month. And finally, Fleet the Dice game, which I'm excited to give a try, probably in solo mode. Alright, see you later.
So friends, how did you do in June? What new games did you play? Have you played any of the ones I played? What did you think of them? Head over to Board Game Geek Guild 3269 and share your experience with games in June. I'd love to hear how it went for you. Thanks for joining me on my walk today. I hope that your next walk is as pleasant as mine was. Bye-bye.
Brought to you by Rattlebox Games.